Hello and welcome to the Watch Kaki channel, where we bring you all the good and honest watch reviews. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, come back here every week because I've got new videos uploaded just for you. In today's video, we are going to do a review of the Tisell Marine Diver. And this watch here, it is a homage or a copage to the Rolex Submariner Hulk. Well, you could argue that it is not exactly a copy because this one here doesn't have the Cyclops, which I totally dislike in watches, but I think you can order one with or without Cyclops from the Tisell website, so I'm so lucky to get in one without the Cyclops. So I recently learned of this term called copage from the YouTube channel Horologique. I think this is a French dude, or at least a French speaking guy. He must be from France or Canada, and he introduced this term copage to all his viewers, and I must say I agree with him. Thanks for allowing me to use this term here, copage. I think this is a very apt description for watches like this. These are just shameless copies of bigger brand watches or more expensive watches. It is more or less a one-for-one copy or look-alike, and let's just dive into the review. So I've just zoomed in a little bit for you to look at the watch close up. So this is, like I said before, it's a true copy of a Rolex Submariner, and the case thickness, everything is very familiar with many watch collectors. It's got a 40mm case size. Thickness is 13mm from the base of the case back to the top of the flat sapphire crystal. Powering this watch is a Miyota movement. The caliber is 90S5, so this is actually the non-date version of the 9015. So the good thing about using the caliber 90S5 is that you don't get a ghost date, so this is a true time-only movement. At the time of this review, the Tisell Marine Diver goes for US dollars 245. You purchase this one from the Tisell Korean website to get such a price, because if you were to purchase this one from the Tisell European website, I think the prices will be slightly higher. If I'm not wrong, it's closer to 300 US dollars. So if you want to save like $60 or so, go on to the Tisell Korean website. So despite being a one-for-one, like-for-like look-alike of the Rolex Submariner, the Tisell does have a little bit of difference. Now, main difference being the lug size, or the overall case size. Is a cross between the 5-digit sub and the 6-digit sub. So in other words, this one here is fatter than the 5-digit subs, but it's also slimmer than the 6-digit sub, if that's a way to put it. So the overall build and finishing also follows that of the Rolex Submariner. It's got plenty of brush finishes from the top of the lugs to the front or the top of the bracelet, leaving the sides all polished, exactly the same way the Rolexes are built. It does have a nicely signed crown, although I think the logo here really reminds me of Tisell. So it does make sense. This one is Tisell and the logo looks like Tisell. Okay, whatever. And the bracelet here on the Tisell is reasonably well built. It does have a true ratcheting diver's extension. Let me just show you. Alright, so it's a true copy of the Rolex glide lock, and it really works. Alright, it is crude, it is not finished very well. You can see many rough edges here and there, but I think it works, it does its job, and it may be good for people, you know, who prefer that bit of micro adjustments on the clasp. Or it could also be very useful for sweaty days or very hot days where your wrist will expand. So the overall build quality, I would say, is still quite decent, not the best. You don't get nice bevels or chamfers on the sides here. And true to the specifications of the Rolex Hulk, this one here has got a ceramic bezel insert. Really nicely done, very shiny, and the dive markers here are engraved. They're not painted, they're engraved. Although I don't know if the paint here will last or whether it's durable for daily wear. Bezel action is actually very decent. It's got a 60 click bezel. Nothing to shout about, not the best, not the most luxurious, but I think it does the job very well, and there's hardly any backplay or misalignment, as you can see from the piece that I've got here. So I'm gonna go on and talk about the dial, and I really must tell you that the dial color is very, very nice. Despite this being a very affordable watch, US dollars 245, I think, you know, that dial is actually really beautiful, and you can see how well it plays with the light here, the studio lights. Okay, so I think, you know, the dial itself is, you know, probably a good reason for anyone to like this watch. So the indices are also nicely applied, and you can see that there's hardly any flows or rough edges. It's quite a good job for the price that you pay. Now the fonts, though, I'm not a very big fan of these fonts because they look too generic. Take a look at the 3 lines here: Marine Diver, water resistance, yada yada yada. The fonts here just look, you know, way too generic, and also even the brand Tisell, I think this is just a generic font picked off from the word processor, and I think this could be an area that, you know, the brand should look into. So now we're going to do a Lume test. I'm going to switch off the lights and let you see how bright the Lume is on the Tisell. And wow, I'm actually very impressed by this Lume here. It looks really nice, and there's a mismatch between the dial and the Lume pip. Lume pip looks very green, whereas the rest of the Lume looks more like a Rolex Chrome or something, Chroma Light Lume, that is slightly more bluish. Really nice here, very bright. And the thing about a non-date watch is that when you go take a look at the Lume shot, you don't get blank space at the place where the date is. So I would say this one here looks really good. Liking the fact that it's got a cleaner dial with no opening for day or date. And now let's look at the wrist shot of the watch in natural light. Here you can see how well this watch wears. It's got a really nice tapering on the bracelet, going from 20mm down to 16mm at the clasp. Just makes the watch wears really well, and now we understand why this design here is the most copied design of all time. So on a whole, I would say this watch here, the Tisell Marine Diver, is a very decent watch for the money. It's got pretty good specs, very good build, wears so well, and you get a true non-date time-only movement, and it comes in a high-beat Miyota 90S5. I can't find something that is overly poor on this watch that makes you say that it is a very lousy watch. The workmanship is decent, movement is fine, it actually looks very good, and the sunburst dial looks beautiful. And again, I must say I like the fact that it's a non-date movement. Very clean, very good, reminds me of the No Date Sub or the To The Black Bay. So I would say, you know, there's really nothing much I can do or I can find to criticize this watch. But the big problem is, are you going to wear a watch like this? Right, so that's the problem, that's the question that I ask myself every time I put on this watch on my wrist at home. So do I really want to wear this one out? Do I really want to wear a blatant copy of a Rolex Sub, a $10,000 watch, and it is unobtainable despite paying twice retail price? Do I really want to do that? So many times I find that I cannot answer the question, and this watch will automatically go back into the watch box. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not a homage phobic or a copage phobic, alright? In fact, I do own some homage watches. I do have one on hand here. This is a homage of the Seiko Tuna. This is a San Martin watch. It's a homage of the Seiko Tuna. The case design, you know, is exactly the same. But I think this one here, I'm more receptive to this San Martin homage because Seiko doesn't really have a model that looks like this. It doesn't have a sunburst blue dial tuna. It doesn't have a tuna with such a handset or a dial design. So in fact, this is a mishmash. The dial comes from MM300, but it is mated to a tuna case. But on a whole, you would safely say this is a tuna homage, but I have no problems wearing this one. The strange thing is, I find it very, very difficult to wear the Tisell. I don't know, maybe it's just me. So looking through Tisell's website, I see many different versions of the Submariner. They've got the all blue version, Cyclops or not. They even have a version of vintage Submariner look. I think that one perhaps is easier for me to accept because Rolex doesn't really have a production model that looks like that. So there you have it. That was my review of the Tisell Marine Diver. It's a really nice watch, well made for the price. I really can't see many flaws about this watch, but the thing is, I don't see myself wearing a watch that is, you know, a blatant copy, a one-for-one copy, right down to the hand style and dimensions and the fonts. I don't think I can do that anymore. So it's a pity. It's a nice watch, but I don't think I will wear this one out. So until the next video, this is the Watch Kaki signing off from Singapore. This guy here, his name is George. We're gonna say goodbye. Bye bye. Till the next video, I'm gonna see you. This is the Watch Kaki. Go back. And this is the Watch Kaki's assistant George, and he's very excited to get a green watch in the studio today. So George is going to take over this review for today. George, all yours. George.